So I've been going through my game libraries trying to find good games that I just haven't really played in a while. And I stumbled across Verdun, which is the best World War I shooter that has been created. I haven't checked out the other game in its series, but that I have played, it is the best World War I shooter ever. Better than Battlefield 1. So I figured today I would go through every single reason why I believe that this game is great. Without further ado, here is... For some reason it didn't export the music, just pretend there's music here. So I truly believe that the best part of any video game, if it is done right, is the ability to customize the weapons that you use in the multiplayer. And I think Verdun does a very good job of this. It doesn't have as in-depth of a customization as Modern Warfare and Cold War and Warzone all have, but it provides an ability to have several different loadouts that are all unique without bombarding you with choices, and it executes it very well. So within the game, you can not only pick which side you want to play on, Entente or Central Powers, but you can pick which squad you want to be within that force. So for example, you can pick the US Marines to play as, instead of just generally somebody in the Entente. And each squad that you pick has 4 different roles, and each role that you pick has 3 different loadouts. Each loadout is a different combination of perks, primaries, secondaries, grenades, etc. The perks aren't really that important and don't do much, but the difference in weapons is very nice. They all sound very good, the animations are on point, and each different weapon actually feels different instead of just being a copied and pasted version of a different weapon. The time to kill in this game is very unique, as most of the bolt-action rifles you'll get and all of the machine guns will one-tap at most ranges to the body. Everything can kill in one shot at point-blank range. Shotguns drop off at a pretty long range for video game shotguns. The one SMG that's in the game drops off a lot further. And the bolt-action rifles can function as a sniper, which is super cool. There's a very low time to kill at any distance with any gun, unless you're using the shotgun. And I really like low time to kill, so this is perfect. So the squads that I think are just better to pick than the others are, with the US Marines, there are 2 loadouts in the specialist role where you get a trench gun, essentially, which is a very good shotgun. There's a German squad that gives you the only SMG in the game, the Machine and Pistol 18-1. Very good. And another German squad gives you a flamethrower, which is also very good. Not actually as overpowered as most of the other guns in this game, but it's pretty fun to use. Side note, on that one squad with the flamethrower, it gives you an artillery Luger, which isn't very practical. Actually, in this game, it is extremely practical because of the low time to kill. You can kill people in one shot to the body with this thing if you're close enough. So it is very practical, but it's mostly just funny that it's there. The light machine guns aren't very strong. They're very strong if you know how to set them up right. What I mean by that is all of the LMGs, you have to mount them. So you have to go prone and you can't move, but you are able to aim down the sights. Some LMGs, you can hip fire them somewhat inaccurately. Some of them you can't shoot unless you're prone. But when you are prone, you're much more accurate, and it's a lot easier to use. There are also a lot of pistols in this game, and each one sounds really cool, looks really cool, and are actually very good to use. They're actually a secondary that you can use like a primary. They don't have the same range as the bolt-action rifles, but they have the same damage until it hits the damage drop-off, which is far enough that you can 2-shot at the same range that you would be using a bolt-action rifle, so it's very strong. In general, the main takeaway from all of the different guns in Verdun is that it really doesn't matter what gun you use, because you can use any gun at any range, except the trench gun and the flamethrower, which are very good at close range. And I really like that style of gameplay, where you could use any gun and be totally fine, because sometimes I want to hop around with an artillery Luger, even though it's not the most practical gun in most other games, as it is just a pistol carbine. But in this game, you can use it very well. Now, unfortunately, Verdun does not actually have a single-player campaign, but it does have the ability to set up a lobby that is filled with bots. The bots aren't particularly smart, but it allows you to play this game, which is really good, without having to try to connect to a multiplayer match, because I've hardly ever found a match with more than 4 people in it at once. You really just can't play this game multiplayer as well as you can if you just fill it up with bots. The 2 main game modes are Squad Defense and Frontlines. Squad Defense being you sit in a trench while waves of enemies attack you. The MVP of each round can call in an artillery strike, and if either everyone on your squad is dead or the enemy captures your trench, you have to fall back to the next trench, and so on until you run out of trenches. It's very fun. It's a pretty standard idea, but it is very fun in this game. Frontlines is kind of the same as Squad Defense, except it's not just for people defending the trench. It's like 32 versus 32, and ideally, most of the time, if you play multiplayer, it's like 2v1. But the goal is to attack the enemy trench, capture it, defend from the enemy counterattack, and then continue pushing until the enemy has run out of trenches, and then you win. Or you either win by just having the most points at the end. You get points for each time you successfully capture or defend a trench. The custom games that you're able to fill with bots are actually very fun. The bots aren't very smart, but with the low time to kill, they do actually kill you. And it really just allows you to like mess around and have fun with the extremely large sandbox that this game has to offer. The other 2 game modes are Attrition and Rifle Deathmatch, and I think there could be one other game mode that I'm not thinking of. But they don't allow you to fill lobbies with bots, and I've never loaded into a lobby that had another player in it, so I really don't have any say on those game modes, except that I have a couple of times, me and like one other person that I'm friends with have loaded into a game of Rifle Deathmatch just to mess around and try to quickscope people with the sawed-off bolt-action rifle. And the final reason why I really love this game is because of the maps. Map design is really important in any game, especially one that takes place in like actual historical locations and events. So what Verdun does is it takes actual battles and it takes like a small section of it and it turns that into a map that you can play game modes in. And the map design is really good. First of all, the graphics of this game are very good, so the maps all look incredible. And they all kind of have the same vibe of, completely annihilated from a lot of constant warfare. And the maps are mostly, like the frontline maps are mostly a bunch of trenches with a bunch of flat spaces in between them, which sounds like it wouldn't work for, frontline game modes, because you could just, like, No Man's Land would be like an actual No Man's Land where it's extremely difficult to get across. However, in Verdun, they add, like, craters and a bunch of barbed wire and occasionally, like, super small, like, bunkers that you can hide in and behind. And they actually allow you to, like, progress up No Man's Land without just getting shot before you even make it out of your own trench, which is a very nice addition. And they do it without necessarily, like, making the maps seem unrealistic and dumb. On top of that, all of the maps can be played on, like, basically any game mode. Like, every single good Frontlines map can also be played in Squad Defense and still be really fun. Additionally, I don't think there are any bad maps, and the maps also don't lack diversity at all. They might all be kind of giving off the same vibe. Like, there's one that takes place in a castle, I think it's like Douaumont. There's one that's basically just like a bunch of craters and puddles and stuff. It's like the whole way across. There's one that takes place in a big forest. There's a lot of diversity with the maps, and it is really cool. That's really all I had to say about Verdun in general. It's a very good game. I think everything that the game does, it does well. And I haven't played Tannenberg, which is the other game that's been released so far in this series. But I do plan on trying that eventually because of how much fun I had in Verdun.